I'm Marcielle Brandler, and this is Marcielle Presents, and I have a wonderful guest. This is a very special guest, a very sweet man and very accomplished, and he was a co-producer of the Emmy Award-winning Cosby Show. I'd like to welcome Erich Van Lowe. Great to see you, Erich.
Hey, Mar, how you doing?
My gosh, it's great. I was just like, we met at USC. I was a student, and he taught a class that I was part of. And your list of accomplishments are so numerous, I can't even, I was thinking of reading them out loud, and it's like mind-boggling. So I think we'll just get into some of them.
Great.
And first of all, how did you get the Cosby gig?
So I got the Cosby Show. I was in New York with Lou Gossett researching a film. And my agent, the best thing an agent did was my agent called the Cosby Show and said, Erich Van Lowe is in New York. You guys need to meet with him. And they were on hiatus, but one of the producers happened to be in the office, Carmen Finestra. He took the call. He came to my hotel room that night. We met. We had went out for some drinks. We talked some sports. They offered me a job, and I was
wow, that's
amazingly
very
on
cool.
the Cosby Show.
That is so cool.
I know.
What a great gig.
Jeez.
How did you like working with all those people?
It was
nice
good,
people.
but it was tough. It was a really, really difficult job.
Very demanding.
Very demanding job, but I learned a lot. Working with Bill Cosby. Come on.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
and it really did catapult
like Bill
my
Cosby.
career.
Wow,
So
that's
great.
amazing. And would you say TV writing is more difficult than film writing?
No.
Not,
No, they're all difficult.
They're just difficult in their own
Writing
different ways.
It's all, for me, it's all the same. I mean,
Yeah.
if you notice, I write plays, I'm doing
Yeah,
novels
everything.
again. It's all storytelling, so it's just a different format or a different vehicle for telling stories, but it's all storytelling. So I don't think it's any more difficult. I think.
What about the hours, though? Long
Well,
hours?
television is incredible hours. The Cosby Show is impossible hours. So.
And then are there like last-minute changes? To me, that would bother me, the last-minute changes in script. Oh, my gosh. And
Well, it's television.
Yeah.
There's changes from the day you turn it in.
yeah,
And then there's changes while they're shooting it on the floor. So
yes.
I think
You have to get
you
used
get
to
used
that.
to it. Yes,
Yeah.
it's just going to be changes. And then when you become the producer of the show, which I eventually was
That's
producing
right.
my own shows, then you're making the changes.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
And everybody else
we're
is running
always,
around
just
like
trying
crazy.
To perfect it, so.
How does an idea, and I know this is a really hard thing to answer, it could take years to just discuss this, but how does an idea become an episode? Like, can you just float it to the person, or do you have to, send a proposal, or when you're already in as a writer?
So the Cosby Show is different from other shows. So do you want me to talk about how
Well,
we
let's
did
say
it
in
on the
general.
Cosby Show?
Yeah.
In general, the writing staff gets together 6 to 10 weeks before the beginning of production, and we begin talking about episodes. And so it starts as conversations, and then we go to a whiteboard and we start writing. That would be a nice episode to see this person interact and do these things. And then we begin to flesh ideas out. And then when ideas get to a certain point, we hand them off to different writers, and then writers do an outline
Play
on
with
the
it,
ideas. And
yeah.
then we come back and we look at them all and decide which of those we're going to develop into scripts.
So that's kind of fun. I love the idea of, in a meeting, you're kind of fleshing it out together.
A lot of people, I mean, it's really fun at the beginning of the season, depending on how many writers you have on staff. Everyone is throwing ideas out, and
Right.
we're just really trying to find what ideas work for what we call the arc of the show and the arc of the characters. And
Do people
it's
like
fun.
insist on things and feelings get hurt, or people usually they're the kind of people that you've hired in advance where you make sure they're not like that?
Well, you
don't
never
have
know. I
those-
mean,
yeah.
in television, what is unfortunate about television is that people often only work with the people they've worked with before, and it makes it more difficult for writers to get in. But the reason they do that is you have to understand there's a process.
Right.
And we
trust.
don't want to stop when someone's feelings get hurt because we're passing on their idea. We have to keep going.
Keep going, yeah.
And so
It's
in
a
the beginning,
business.
it's a business, and in 10 weeks, you have to start production no matter what.
Right.
And so scripts have to be ready in 10 weeks. So
yeah.
the first few weeks are kind of nice, and we get to know each other. But it gets harder as it goes along, because some writers are up for it and are more nimble and ready to change better than other writers are. So.
Well, especially beginning writers, they like, my idea is holy, don't touch it, you know.
It's really hard on beginning writers.
Yeah. Do you know a lot of the other writers that you know are on other shows, or do you ever get a chance to really mingle? My cousin he was on Smallville for years.
What's his name?
Brian Peterson.
I don't know him. I was almost on Smallville. I was going to be one of the producers on Smallville, so.
Yeah, he's executive producer on it, and then now it stopped, and now he's on Beauty and the Beast.
Ah. Yeah. I'm actually developing a show, we were talking about the CW. I'm actually developing a show now at ABC Family, which is another paranormal show like Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, those are interesting shows. And I know you did several projects before Cosby.
Yes.
You wrote the Academy Award nominated Cadillac Dreams.
I did. Yes.
What was that about?
That was the first Hood movie.
Okay.
It was the movie that John Singleton used as a template for Boys in the Hood.
Right.
And
it was pre-Boys in the Hood.
It was pre-Boys in the Hood, because John was still at USC at the time. And it was about me growing up in a rough neighborhood.
Yourself, autobiographical.
It's a bit autobiographical about my brother and myself. The original idea came from the director Mattia Carell, who had a Women in Film grant at AFI, and she told me the type of film she wanted to do, and she'd seen a play of mine. Cool. So this all started with, I'd done a play called The Running of the Wolves, which was a really edgy play, and she'd seen it at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. It premiered at the Taper, and she was looking to do something really gritty, and I came up with, worked with her like we do on TV on the story about these two brothers. One is a drug dealer, and very violent.
Very violent. And would you say that you have sort of an overall vision for your work, maybe a message or a sort of a viewpoint, social viewpoint, or do you sort of go by your moods, when you write?
I mean, normally I write to entertain, so there are always themes. There may be underlying messages, but I'm an entertaining writer, so I don't write with any grand vision or something I'm trying to get across to people.
But your personality might sip through.
Yeah, well, there are always things that there are always like little platforms that you may get on during a story.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I'm a popular fiction writer. I write to entertain.
Yes. I remember there was a scene where on the Cosby Show where they'd gone through whatever was going on the show, and then one of the kids or somebody was sitting watching TV, and then you heard, "I have a dream," and it got real silent, and they gathered around. And I thought that was very powerful, because there was a lot of laughter beforehand, and then this sense of reverence, and then the end. And, and sometimes Star Trek does that. Well, they'll have sort of embedded in the entertainment, like you say, the entertainment is there, but embedded in it might be a message. And I love those kinds of
Now, that is
shows.
Unusual for the Cosby Show.
Was.
Well, Mr. Cosby really wanted the Cosby Show to be free of messages.
Yes.
But every once in a while there are things that need to be said, and so we would say
them. I love that. I thought that was great.
But he had another show called A Different World.
Yes.
And that was his message show. So Different World was always about messages, and the Cosby Show was always free of messages.
It was more about family. Yes. Yeah. And you did other work like Homeboys in Outer Space.
Yes.
What was that? That sounds fun.
That was a good idea gone bad.
Oh.
That was something a network came to me to do. And what we really wanted to do, now we really wanted to do social commentary. So the
Homeboys in Outer Space?
Well, whenever you do space is always a platform. Science fiction is a platform for social commentary.
It is.
So the original concept of the show was, here's a great opportunity, black people in space, to do some real social commentary about a lot of things and issues.
Yeah.
But once the show got picked up, the studio wanted no social commentary. And so then we wound up kind of, well, what are we writing about every week? A space opera is generally social commentary, and ours was just a funny space opera. And then it just became...
They sucked the soul out of it.
They sucked the soul out of it, yeah.
That's what they did. Oh, my gosh. I know that's what happens when you have conflicting agendas. And what I really have a problem with in some of the things I've seen around me is you'll have an agenda and you'll speak the agenda and the other person seems to agree, oh yeah, I'm supportive, and then there's a change and it'll suck the life out of the project.
That is exactly what happened with that show. The show came from the network. The network brought a concept to me. I liked the concept. I developed the concept. I was based at a studio, so the studio was always behind it until the show got picked up. And then the studio basically told the network, we're not going to do the show the way Erich said we should do it. We're going to do it this way. So there we were.
They blew it. And I know in episode 1, the Polish ambassador is a beat machine from the future, hailing simultaneously from the far reaches of other dimensional universes. Sounds like really fun, like a kick.
Well, again, what we did was we buried our social messages in the show. So the shows were kind of wacky, but we tried to sneak in, we did a show about prison. We did shows about drugs, but the drug was sugar. And so...
And that's a drug. It is a drug. It is a drug,
yes.
So I was going to ask you, too, when I met you at USC, how did you get that gig, teaching classes at USC?
Well, I'm a graduate of the professional writing program. So the then head of the program actually asked me to come back.
Is that James Reagan?
Dr. Reagan, yes. Yeah. And at first, I think I taught humor at first. I wound up teaching so many things, so I don't know. I believe you took a humor class with me?
I think it was about film.
Yeah, I did screenwriting. Yeah, I did humor, I did screenwriting, I did TV writing.
Yeah, because I was also a graduate of professional writing.
I'm aware of that. That's how we met.
And so we, that's how we met. And but yeah, I think your class was film, and obviously, and what I loved about you too is that you, when I was over at AFI working on a film for this young woman, you donated to the project, and I was very impressed that you did that because we barely knew each other, and I always remembered you because of that, your generosity.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I try.
Yeah. Where were you raised?
New York City, the Bronx, Boogie Down.
Oh, the Bronx.
Yes.
What are the Bronx like? Is that a hardcore area, or is it just...
When I grew up in the Bronx, so you've heard of that Paul Newman movie, Fort Apache, the Bronx?
I've never seen it.
I grew up in Fort Apache. It was the
Fort Apache.
Roughest neighborhood in the Bronx at the time, one of the roughest areas in
in
America. And that's
How'd you
where
survive?
It was easy. It was fun.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
No problem.
I was raised around Hell's Angel girls, and they try to fight me. And
oh, yeah, there's always strife.
Yeah.
But it was a different time. People are trying to get out. It was tough.
Yeah.
But,
in a way,
it
makes you
family,
stronger.
So, I came from a full nuclear family and I had a
so they
tough father.
Over you and
so,
disciplinarian.
There's only so far we could go.
Good. You can't wander around too far around the block or whatever.
There you go.
Yeah. On a literary website called Red Room, Christopher Meeks interviewed you.
Yes, he did.
And he said he's been nominated for an Emmy and an Academy Award. Van Lowe stepped into the young adult fiction genre with his novel Never Slow Dance with a Zombie. So,
yes.
And on your website, you have